Today we're going to discuss spiritual farts, or what I would like to refer to as cults, doomers, utopian fantasies, and the Book of Revelations. Alright, first we should probably define what a spiritual fart is. A spiritual fart is basically when people make up some outrageous claim or reason or desire to be special as a result of their meditative experiences. Common examples of this include following a raw vegan diet will allow you to live to be 120 years old. Lizard people are in control of the government. The world's coming to an end in exactly 125 years. These are the kinds of things that qualify as spiritual farts. Now, these are pretty common in esoterica for a variety of reasons that I'm about to get into now. But essentially I've identified roughly 5 of these that appear to be most common. Alright, the first cause of spiritual farts, and the most common one by far, is in fact drug use. Why? Well, the brain damage that often accompanies drug use results in an odd phenomenon that when the brain begins to repair itself, the pathways between various neurons get randomized. So instead of being able to follow logic, which is how we normally make decisions for most people, what ends up happening is random ideas basically get connected together as these neurons that got blown to pieces kind of do this thing. Now, a not very smart person will confuse this with creativity. Someone with a little more insight might refer to this as something that we call garbage in equals garbage out. Simply 2 random ideas that are spliced together that now, in the fever dream of delusion, seem to make sense. Okay, what are some examples of this? Chemtrails phenomenon. Those smoky white things that come off the back of a jet, they're called contrails. It's a combination of unburned fuel and water vapor released at altitude. The government's not trying to poison anybody. There's no CIA plot involved. But in the brain damaged adult mind of certain people, this seems to make sense. So, drugs are the number 1 cause of this. 2, bright things on the astral are simply easier to see. When you're engaging your clairvoyance, okay, they're the things that are easy to see, those things that have a lot of energy and emotion associated with them. And then there are the things that are very hard to see. Just because something's easy to see on the astral doesn't make it any more likely than anything else to happen. Again, when you're dealing with people who don't have much training and are largely relying upon natural ability to generate these states, when they see something, they're going to tend to glom on to that thing that's easiest to see. That's not to say that it's likely. So that's the second of our 5 items that get into that. Again, this is why I tell people any esoterically derived information you have, you need to vet heavily and properly. Because chances are it's probably just a bunch of garbage and a bunch of mental delusion. This is where the Buddhists definitely have a point when they say, these ecstatic visionary experiences, not really that important. Probably shouldn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. Item number 3, boredom. If you live in a developed country, in the modern world, life's pretty good. You know, government generally works. Maybe not to our liking all the time, but you can generally count on there being courts and police that more or less do their job most of the time. Power generation is pretty reliable. The lights stay on most of the time. Cures for basic diseases and hygiene-related illness have been long established and long in place. You don't generally need to worry about dying from cholera anytime soon, or these days even a bacterial infection. Well, when you have that hierarchy of needs thing, and you don't need to spend a whole lot of time on the bottom part, providing food and shelter, that leaves you a lot of time to work on the other parts. But notice the operative word there, work. we discuss a lot on this channel, the enlightenment process takes a fair amount of work. And work is something that most people don't want to do, regardless of their background, especially for something that has as nebulous a payoff as enlightenment, whatever the hell that means. So people get bored, but just because you're bored doesn't mean you don't need a reason to live. Again, human beings are kind of unique in this regard, in that unlike all the other animals floating around there who are happy to exist for the sake of existence, we kind of have to have a reason to exist. It's a common phenomenon that's seen amongst retirees, where man or woman retires from a high demand job, been very successful, they go into complete retirement mode, and 5 years later they're dead. Why? They didn't have a reason to live. So boredom can result in people searching out spiritual farts as an excuse to explain why they're bored or why their life has no purpose or whatever else. A lot of the international conspiracy theory stuff kind of falls into this category, because as someone who's been involved in international governance from time to time, I'm here to tell you, kids, nobody's really in charge. There's this great analogy with the founders of Black Rifle Coffee, who were two Central Intelligence Agency operatives at a very high level. They're hanging out in this one country that isn't named, and they're sitting there going, you know what, I really hope there's a secret world government, because we don't know what the hell's going on here. All we're doing is eating cheeseburgers and drinking beer. So if the guys in the most super secret paramilitary unit on the face of the planet have no idea what's going on, it's a pretty safe bet your average bureaucratic toadstool at the NIH probably doesn't know what's going on either. So, food for thought. All right, a desire to be special. This kind of goes back into the boredom thing. When it comes to spiritual farts, a lot of people want to have a status, if you will, that they haven't earned. I mean, one, as we talk about in the 60 Skills curriculum a lot, this enlightenment process, working with magic, you're really just leveraging underlying forces in nature. Even that state of the void or the state of non-dual light, that's something you're designed to experience as a human being. Now, you have to leverage some phenomena and skills that most people don't really understand very well in order to make that happen. But it's built into the system. So if something's built into the system and you just have to learn how to do it, well, there's nothing really all that special about it. It's special to you or me as an experience. But in the overall scheme of things, enlightenment really isn't that special. It's just observing reality as it actually exists. So we get into this issue of people being bored, or perhaps having a desire to be special. Now, this can manifest in a bunch of really weird ways that involve spiritual farts. The overbearing yogic leader, I am the complete enlightened grandmaster of whatever. Again, whatever that actually means, that's kind of up to you, because it doesn't really mean anything. Well, again, as we established in the 60 Skills curriculum, there's so many different things to specialize in esoterica, just like in the sciences or the arts, that you can be competent at a lot of things. You can probably be really good at one or two. But mastering all of them, yeah, that's not going to happen. It's just too diverse a crowd of skills to have to develop. They're going to have to settle for being good at one or two things and having interest in others. But this desire to be special in terms of a spiritual fart can be even more screwed up, where people take on a victim status in order to be special. You know, they're a chosen group of people who always seem to get screwed over by the system or the government or whatever because they're being oppressed. Super common phenomenon. In fact, I had one student who even threw away a multi-million-dollar business he'd built from the ground up because he'd been raised in a cult where they programmed it into his mind that society was out to get them. I mean, just sheer insanity. But that's how a spiritual fart can express itself as I'm special by virtue of being part of this super secret victim class that the Illuminati or whatever are out to get. Screwed up, but I've seen it happen. All right, finally, number 5 and my most favorite one of all. Spiritual farts can be developed by a lack of achievement in life. Again, as we've talked about in the 60 Skills curriculum or series of videos, it appears incarnating in this world is done in order to achieve things, in order to have certain experiences, in order to do things, basically. This world is not a place that's designed as a place to just simply hang out or exist. It's not why we're here. Well, achievement in life, even in a first world country where there's lots of resources and everybody's educated and everybody lives forever and blah, 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 takes some effort. People who go down the magic path or the meditative path tend to be pretty smart. I mean, they tend to be more intelligent than your average person. But that doesn't change the fact that they can easily be lazy. There's a man by the name of Aaron Cleary who wrote a book called The Curse of the High IQ. And he gets into the different categories of highly intelligent people and how most people in that category end up being relatively successful in life in the long run. There are people who choose to not be successful, and the different methods and paths in life they can take. So if you haven't been successful in life and you haven't achieved anything or gotten anything done, a spiritual fart is a good way to blame that on someone or something else. Oh, we live in a fallen time. Oh, the Illuminati are plotting against me. Oh, the reptilian people are intentionally enslaving us so we don't get anything done. So on and so on and so on. Absolutely none of which is true, but it's a convenient excuse for sitting on the couch, smoking a blunt, drinking a six-pack, eating some Cheetos, and not actually getting anything done. So these are 5 reasons in places where spiritual farts come from. Just to give you a little bit of a heads up, if you happen to be falling into one of those categories, you might want to do something about that. So, if you enjoyed the topic of today's discussion, please give us a like down below, and if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to the channel. Otherwise, as per usual, you can go to 60skills.com to learn more about what's going on in the 60 Skills world, and train hard and be well.